"Fear me, human," the alien queen roared. He laughed. "After my ex-wife, you're adorable." The chamber pulsed with violet light as smoke curled around the torn metal floor, and the air trembled with an ancient, predatory energy. Chains rattled where the last survivors had been dragged away, their screams still echoing like ghosts in the dark. At the center stood the alien queen, towering, crowned in bone, eyes burning with cosmic fury, and yet the human before her didn't flinch. Commander Rian Locke simply wiped the blood from his lip and smirked. Her breath was fire, his heartbeat was steady, and when she thundered, "Fear me, human," he just laughed because terror was an old friend. The throne room of the Hive Empress was a cathedral carved from fear itself, a fortress grown from alien bone and blackened metal. It pulsed faintly, as if the entire structure breathed slow, predatory inhales that made the air vibrate in Rian Locke's chest. Nerve vines snaked across the walls, glowing with sickly violet light, their pulses syncing with the heavy footsteps of the creature who ruled this world. Each thud echoed like a war drum. Each vibration crawled across his spine. But Rian didn't move. He stood on the cracked metal floor, breathing evenly despite the heat rising in the chamber. Smoke drifted from shattered lantern pods, simmering with the scent of molten stone and something organic, something dying. Chains dangled from the high vaulted ceiling, some still swaying from the last prisoners ripped from them. The faded screams felt like shadows, haunting the stale air. Yet Rian didn't flinch. Not when the queen's silhouette emerged from the glowing haze. She was monstrous in a way that demanded awe rather than revulsion. Twice his height, adorned with natural armor plated like obsidian knives, her crest rising like a crown forged from living bone. Her eyes burned a deep molten gold, twin suns radiating dominance. She moved with the control of a creature that had been feared for generations and had never once misplaced its confidence in that fear. Rian didn't bow, didn't kneel. He just wiped the blood from his lip and met her gaze as if she were nothing more than a looming conversation partner with very bad breath. "You stand," she growled, voice rumbling through the chamber like the engine of a dying star. "Most who look upon me fall to their knees, faint, or beg for mercy." Rian rolled his shoulders, the corner of his mouth twitching upward. "I guess I'm not most people." The queen stepped closer, her claws scraping deep trenches into the metal floor with every stride. Sparks jumped and hissed on impact. Her warlords, 8 hulking brutes draped in plated exoskeletons, closed in behind her, each carrying a plasma-tipped spear that hummed with lethal energy. Their shadows stretched across Rian's boots, but still he didn't budge. The Empress stopped mere inches from him. She was close enough for him to feel the heat radiating from her armor, close enough to smell the ozone crackling from her breath. She lowered her head, tilting it with a slow, predatory study, like a lioness examining an animal that hadn't realized it was already dead. "You fear nothing," she hissed. Rian shrugged lightly. "Fear's not the issue. Timing is." Her talon rose in a blur, razor sharp, black as the void tracing down his cheek. It didn't hurt, but it forced his head slightly to the side. A clear display of dominance. A reminder that she could slice him open before he blinked. A drop of blood slid down his jawline, but Rian looked straight back into her eyes without hesitation. The queen paused, not in mercy, in confusion. "You do not understand your position," she said slowly, as though speaking to a malfunctioning droid. "Your ship trespassed into my territory. Your crew resisted. You killed my guards. You walked willingly into my nest. Any of these crimes warrant death. If you wanted me dead," he said calmly, "we wouldn't be talking." A murmur rippled through the warlords, their mandibles clacking in irritation. The queen narrowed her eyes further. "Explain," she demanded. "You took my crew alive," Rian said, "which means you need something, and you're trying really hard not to show it." Her pupils tightened. The chamber seemed to freeze for a breath. Rian took a small step forward, not aggressive, just decisive. "You haven't executed me. You haven't torn me apart. You haven't even paraded me through your hive like a trophy. That means you're not sure yet. You're testing me." The queen's claw lifted again, this time hooking under his chin with a gentler touch, like someone examining a valuable artifact. "You observe well," she admitted. "For a human, I get that a lot." Her mandibles shifted, forming what might have been amusement or irritation. "You wear confidence like armor," she said. "It is thin." And yet Rian replied, "Here I am still standing." Her head snapped closer, fangs inches from his throat. "Because I allow it." "Because you want something," he corrected softly. The moment stretched between them, a battle of silence, a battle of wills. Then she exhaled a low, thunderous sound, and the heat of her breath rolled over him like a furnace. "You are bold, human, arrogant, reckless," he smirked. "You forgot charming." That was the final crack. Her claws tightened slightly under his chin. Her voice dropped to a lethal whisper. "Tell me why I should not crush your skull between my jaws." He stared straight into her burning eyes and said, without hesitation, "Because you're interested in me." Her eyes flared brighter. The warlords froze. Even the hive walls seemed to hesitate. The room felt suspended in time. "You insult me," she growled. "No," he said. "I read you." A dangerous silence followed. The queen studied him with a gaze sharp enough to peel flesh from bone. Her nostrils flared, Her mind probed his aura with invisible claws, and Rian felt it, her curiosity, her fascination, her attraction, not physically, not romantically, but something deeper, something primal, respect, challenge, recognition. "You are not afraid," she repeated quietly, as if still trying to understand it. Rian shrugged. "After my ex-wife." He paused just long enough for the tension to stretch. "You're adorable." The throne room fell silent. The warlords stared in disbelief. The queen herself froze, an expression unreadable. A single droplet of his blood hit the floor with a soft tap. Then something strange crossed her face, not rage, not insult, but interest sharpened into hunger. A slow, terrifying smile crept across her mandibles. "Human," she murmured. Her voice dropped into something dark and dangerous. "You may amuse me." Rian's smirk faded for the first time, because the walls around him began to shift, closing in, reshaping, sealing him inside a living trap. The queen leaned in, eyes glowing with predatory satisfaction. "The selection begins." And Rian realized he had just walked into something far more dangerous than death. The walls closed around Rian like a living maze, their surfaces shifting with wet, organic clicks, rearranging themselves with a mind of their own. The violet glow pulsed brighter, casting wavering shadows that danced like restless spirits. He stepped back automatically, but the path behind him sealed shut with a crunch of bone-like plates sliding into place. The queen's silhouette loomed just beyond the forming corridor, half-lit by the glow of her hive. She watched him not like a captor but like a scientist examining an intriguing specimen. Rian didn't give her the satisfaction of stepping away quickly. He forced himself to breathe slow, steady. He'd been in tight spots before: derelict ships, leaking atmosphere, mercenary ambushes in dark alleys, a dinner date with his ex-wife's new boyfriend, but never anything quite like this. The corridor sealed fully, locking him inside with a deep, resonant thud. It felt final, intentional, like the hive itself understood what he was now part of. "Move," the queen commanded, her voice echoing down the tightening hallway. "Your trial begins." Trial? Rian didn't like the sound of that, but he'd come too far to hesitate now. He adjusted his torn jacket, wiped the last smear of blood from his jaw, and started walking. Beneath his boots, the floor shifted subtle, like a living creature adjusting to his weight. Bioluminescent roots split the floor, creating faint blue veins that lit his path forward. The air grew warmer, thick with humidity and alien pheromones that made it hard to tell if the hive was hostile or simply curious. Rian kept his steps controlled, his posture relaxed. He didn't run. He didn't rush. Even when claws scraped from nearby tunnels, even when shadows scuttled behind the walls like creatures waiting for him to fail, he kept walking with the same unbothered stride that had irritated the queen into fascination. "Show no fear," he muttered to himself quietly. "Never give them what they want." His boots clicked against the bone-plated floor as the corridor expanded into a massive chamber. The ceiling arched at least 100 feet above him, draped with glistening silk-like tendrils that dripped glowing droplets. Pools of iridescent liquid shimmered on the ground, reflecting the movement of creatures above. Massive, spider-like drones crawling along the ceiling, inspecting him with unblinking blue eyes. But they didn't descend. They were waiting. 3 pathways unfolded ahead of him, carved from the shifting walls, left, right, and center, each pulsed with a different color: green, red, and blue. He took a slow breath. It was a test, a psychological labyrinth. "What are you trying to figure out?" he asked the air, knowing the queen could hear him through the hive's sensory web. A soft, almost pleased hum reverberated through the chamber. Her voice followed a heartbeat later. "Your instincts." Rian snorted. "You could have just asked. Instincts cannot lie." Her voice curled around him like smoke. "You can pause." She had a point. Rian studied the paths. Green pulsed steadily. Organic.com. Too calm. Red throbbed like a heartbeat. Obvious danger. Blue flickered faintly, almost unstable, unpredictable. He thought of his crew locked somewhere deeper in the hive. He thought of the queen's strange, hungry curiosity. He thought of the fact that the hive reacted to him not like prey, but like something being evaluated. Predictability got you killed. Cowardice got you ignored. Fear got you consumed. So he walked straight into the blue path. The walls tightened around him immediately, as though surprised that he chose the unstable route. The queen's voice followed, laced with amusement. "Bold or stupid," he replied under his breath. "That remains to be seen." The blue corridor darkened as he walked. The glowing veins dimmed until only faint embers remained. The walls flexed, squeezing inward, then expanding, breathing around him. It wasn't until he heard the rattling chitter that he realized he wasn't alone. 6 eyes blinked open in the darkness ahead, then 6 more, then 12. Rian tightened his stance, lowering his center of gravity as figures crawled out of the wall-thin, mantis-like aliens with hooked forearms and elongated skulls. Their movements were silent, eerily synchronized. They circled him like predators, deciding which part to bite first. One sniffed the torn sleeve of his jacket. Another tapped at the floor with its talons, testing him. "You guys always form a welcome committee," Rian muttered. They didn't respond, but their mandibles clicked in unison, a sharp metallic sound that echoed through the corridor. Then something shifted. They stepped back, not out of fear but respect. The queen's voice slid through the hive, warmer now. Intrigued. They accept you. Great, Rian muttered. Do I get a membership card? No, but you may keep your life. The mantis creatures parted, revealing a wide doorway behind them. Beyond it, faint golden light flickered like torches. Rian moved forward, wary but determined. The creatures didn't follow, but their dozens of unblinking eyes tracked him until he disappeared into the next chamber. Inside, the air cooled dramatically. Light cascaded from a massive crystal growth embedded in the ceiling, refracting across the chamber like a fractured sunrise. At the center stood a single structure, an obsidian pedestal holding a spherical object, encased in glass like resin. Rian stepped toward it slowly. He knew a trap when he saw one. The sphere was dark, swirling faintly with energy, alive like a heart pulsing behind glass. The hum that filled the room vibrated through his bones. Is this part of the trial? He asked aloud. Yes. The queen's voice echoed from everywhere. Touch it. He raised an eyebrow. That usually ends poorly for me. That depends on what you are. Rian froze. What I am. I'm human. Another hum, almost amused. Are you? Something cold slid down his spine. He looked at the sphere again closely this time, and for a brief moment, it pulsed in sync with his heartbeat. His breath hitched. What is this thing? He whispered. The hive core, she answered. It reacts only to those who carry resonance. I don't know what that means. You will. The hum intensified. The sphere glowed brighter. Rian felt something stirring inside him, something old. Something buried, something he didn't recognize. His vision blurred for a split second, colors warping. The core pulsed again, harder this time, like it was calling him, a call he somehow recognized. He swallowed hard. Why does it react to me? A long silence followed. Then the queen spoke, her voice darker than before. Because, human, you are not what you think you are. Rian's heart slammed in his chest, and the sphere cracked open. A blinding flash filled the chamber and everything went black. Darkness wasn't absence, it was weight. It pressed on Rian from all sides, thick and suffocating, as though the void itself had hands and fingers that curled around his skull. His breath stuttered as the blinding light faded, leaving him suspended in a place that felt too vast to be a room yet too close to be open space. A faint hum trembled through him, not through the air, through him. His heartbeat and the hive core's pulse had merged into one steady rhythm, echoing like distant thunder. He wasn't standing anymore, or maybe he was. The concept of a floor felt vague here, as though physics had politely stepped aside to let something else take over. He lifted his hands, but instead of seeing them, he saw faint threads of light stretching from his fingertips into the void, connecting him to something enormous, ancient, and vividly alive. His pulse quickened. What is this? He whispered, though his voice didn't sound like a sound at all. It was more like a thought echoing into the fabric around him. A presence answered not with words, but a vibration that rippled like the surface of disturbed water. Colors swirled in the darkness, forming vague shapes, dissolving, reforming again. The faces he didn't know, memories he never lived, planets he'd never seen burned across the void like fleeting sparks in a cosmic firestorm. Armies marched in silence. Swarms moved like tidal waves. Queens rose and fell. He staggered, overwhelmed. These weren't images, they were echoes, imprints left behind by something with a memory larger than time. And the deeper he looked, the more he felt something tugging at him, trying to integrate him into that vast archive of existence. A sudden jolt struck through his chest, grounding him. Breathe, human. The queen's voice cut through the void like a razor, separating him from the visions. Rian gasped, the sensation of lungs and air and body slamming back into him, so sharply he dropped to one knee on a floor that hadn't been there a second ago. A haze lifted from the dark, and the chamber slowly reformed around him in jagged pieces. Walls, floor, crystals, the shattered remains of the hive core glowing in molten fragments. He blinked hard, his heart hammered. Sweat dripped from his temples. The queen stood above him, watching with the intensity of a predator and the curiosity of a scientist. Her golden eyes reflected the faint blue streaks still trailing from his arms like fading veins of light. You survived, she said, sounding genuinely impressed. Few do. Rian forced himself upright. His legs trembled, but he refused to show it. What did you put in my head? Nothing, she replied. Those were your visions. Those were not mine, he snapped. I've never seen anything like that. I don't even understand half of what I saw. You do, she said. Somewhere inside you, your blood remembers. Rian clenched his jaw. My blood. I'm human. You believe that, she replied calmly. But the core does not. Her words sank into him like cold iron. He took a shaky step back. You're lying. I have no reason to lie, she said simply. Rian's mind raced. His mother's face flashed before him, soft, human, familiar. His childhood on Terrafor Colony. His father, a miner with rough hands and a kind smile. His crew, his fights, his scars. There was nothing alien about his life. Nothing strange or mysterious. I know who I am, he said, voice low but steady. The queen's mandibles twitched, almost sympathetically. Identity is not memory. It is truth. And the truth is this. The hive core recognizes only one thing, its own. Rian opened his mouth to argue, but his vision flickered again. Not darkness light, not pink. He steadied himself against the pedestal as golden threads of energy flickered across his peripheral vision. Weaving between himself and the core fragments, he swallowed hard. Why is this happening to me? The hive core tested your resonance, she said. Your lineage, your compatibility with a hive network. And what did it find? Her eyes glowed brighter. You are not an outsider, Rian Locke. Not fully. His breath hitched. I don't have alien blood. Bloodlines cross stars, she replied. Empires fall. Species mingle. Evolution does not care for the limits you cling to. Rian shook his head fiercely. No, that's impossible. In the years before your birth, she said, stepping closer, my people waged war with the Dominion. Entire sectors burned. Our queens died in clusters. Our hives shattered. But fragments were taken, sold, studied, mixed. His stomach dropped. You're telling me someone experimented on my family? I am telling you, she corrected, placing one talon against his chest where the energy still pulsed beneath his skin, that you carry a dormant echo, a spark of hive resonance buried beneath human flesh, enough to connect, enough to survive the core, enough to challenge a queen. Rian stared at her, stunned into silence. A queen challenged as fingers curled unconsciously. What does that mean for me? He asked quietly. That, she said, tilting her head with a predatory elegance. Depends on whether you continue to amuse me. The walls shifted again, responding to her mood. The hum intensified, echoing through the chamber like a storm forming. She circled him slowly, assessing him with every step. You walked into my hive without trembling, she said. You confronted me without bowing. You withstood the core without dying. Her mandibles parted in something like a grin. And you laughed at me. Rian swallowed, still not apologizing. I do not want an apology, she said. I want answers. The lights dimmed. The chamber tightened. What are you, Rian Locke? He met her burning gaze, feeling a pressure building in his chest, an electric pull towards something he didn't understand and desperately didn't want to. His heartbeat synced again with the fragment's thump, thump, thump. The room vibrated. The queen leaned close, her breath warm and electric. Do you feel it now? She whispered. The hive calls to you. Rian's pulse hammered. His skin prickled. His breath trembled. I don't want this, he said, voice tight. Want is irrelevant. You were chosen. Like hell I am. But his denial was drowned out by the rising hum, the core responding again, calling him deeper, calling him home. And somewhere in the distance, deeper in the hive, something awakened. Something that responded to him. The queen's eyes widened slightly, her gaze lifting toward the sound vibrating through the hive walls. She whispered a single phrase, one Rian wasn't sure he was meant to hear. It wakes for him. Rian stepped back, throat tight. What wakes? The queen turned to him slowly, the weight of her next words dropping like a blade. The first brood. Before he could question, the floor cracked beneath them, and the hive roared to life. The hive did not simply awaken, it erupted. A thunderous vibration tore through the chamber, shaking dust from the crystalline ceiling and sending a low guttural roar coursing through every wall. Rian staggered, grabbing the fractured pedestal as a shockwave pulsed outward like a heartbeat the size of a planet. The queen's head snapped toward the far tunnel, her golden eyes narrowing as ancient instincts rippled across her posture. That sound, she murmured, it should not exist anymore. Rian felt it too, not just as noise, but as a pull deep in his bones, as if another heartbeat had begun pounding beneath his own. Each pulse crawled up his spine, threading through his nerves like molten wires. He gasped and slammed a hand on the ground, trying to steady the unbearable surge rushing through him. What's happening? He growled. She turned toward him with a seriousness he had not seen since their first confrontation. The first brood stirs, and it stirs because of you. I didn't do anything. You resonated with the core, she hissed. The first brood answers only to those carrying the original genome. It responds to kin. Rian stared at her, breath freezing in his chest. Kin. Before she could elaborate, the tunnel at the far end of the chamber cracked open like a rupturing egg sac. A blast of cold mist burst into the room, spiraling upward in a twisting cloud that shimmered like liquid silver. Rian shielded his face as the temperature plummeted. The queen held her ground, her wings unfurling in a defensive arc. Tiny flecks of luminescent spores drifted through the air, dusting Rian's hair and shoulders. They glowed against his skin like falling stars. He wiped his cheek, and a spark of energy leapt from his fingertips. The queen's eyes widened. It recognizes you. I don't want to be recognized. The mist thickened, swirling into a vortex. The roar grew deeper, layered with voices, hundreds, thousands, echoing in the hive's language. Rian didn't understand the words, but he felt the meaning crawl beneath his skin. Welcome, return, become. No, Rian whispered. No, no, no. The queen suddenly stepped in front of him, blocking his line of sight to the vortex. Her wings wrapped around him like a shield of living armor. Stay behind me. Since when do you defend me? Since the first brood awakens, she snapped. It does not know allies, only blood. The vortex collapsed inward, forming a dense sphere of shimmering mist. Then it ripped apart, From inside the rift stepped something taller than any warrior drone Rian had seen, taller even than the queen. Its silhouette was all jagged edges and graceful curves, shaped like a relic carved from starlight and bone. 4 arms, 2 wings, a crown of spined tendrils. Its body glowed from within, veins of blue and gold pulsing like electricity trapped inside crystal. It opened its many eyes. They all focused on him. The queen lowered her stance. The first brood matriarch. Rian swallowed, his mouth suddenly dry. That's a brood mother. That is the first mother, the queen corrected quietly. Old as the hive. Born when our species was nothing more than instinct and hunger. She sleeps until a descendant with her bloodline appears. Rian froze, disbelief crushing him. You're saying she thinks I'm her what? Grandson? The queen didn't answer. The matriarch stepped forward, each movement silent, fluid, terrifyingly regal. She stopped only a few feet away and lowered her head, not in hostility, but in recognition that her voice cracked through the air, deep and resonant, vibrating through Rian's bones. Child of the lost line. Rian's whole body went cold. I'm not, he began. But the matriarch reached out with a hand larger than his torso, not grabbing, not harming. Her clawed fingers brushed the side of his face, and a bolt of energy shot through him so violently he gasped. His vision filled with flashes, worlds he'd never seen, creatures he'd never met, wars that made the Dominion conflict look like playground fights. He saw a man, human, but not, a minor, a father, his father, holding an infant him but standing behind his father, a woman with luminous eyes, not quite human, not quite alien, something between. His mother. Rian stumbled back, breath trembling. No, he whispered, this can't be real. My mum was human. She looked human, spoke human, lived like one. But in that brief vision, her eyes glowed with the same muted gold as the queen's, the same flicker of energy, now pulsing beneath Rian's skin. The matriarch's voice echoed again. Your blood carries our first spark, long lost, now returned. Rian pressed his palms to his temples, struggling to understand. So I'm one of you, half of you. What does that make me? The queen stepped beside him, her claws slowly lowering as the matriarch bowed her head deeper. It makes you the rightful heir, the queen said softly. Heir to what? To the hive. Silence crashed between them. Rian shook his head violently. No, absolutely not. I'm not leading an alien army. I'm a salvage pilot. I fix broken engines and argue with my crew about fuel rations. I'm not this. The matriarch slowly lifted her head, eyes burning like twin suns. You cannot escape what you are. Rian backed away until he hit the pedestal. What's me? The queen's wings rustled. The first brood will not allow you to leave, not while it still sees you as its reborn lineage, and you should understand. Her voice darkened. If you reject them, they will tear this hive apart to reclaim you. A fresh roar echoed through the tunnels, dozens more broods awakening, answering the matriarch's call. The ground shook harder. The air tightened, thick with power and expectation. The queen stepped closer until she stood face to face with Rian. Listen to me, she said. You have one choice that determines everything. Accept your lineage, or defy it, and if I defy it, then the first brood will claim you by force, she said, and I will be forced to either protect you or fight for you. Rian stared at her, stunned. You'd fight them? A strange emotion flickered across her face, annoyance, frustration, and something he couldn't quite name. You are mine to challenge, she said. No brood takes that from me. He blinked. Is that affection? Her mandibles clicked sharply, offended. Do not insult me, human. Another roar shook the chamber. Closer now. Rian exhaled shakily. Sweat dripped from his jaw. His heart thundered inside him like a second hive core. He looked at the queen, then at the matriarch, then at the glowing veins beneath his own skin. His lineage was a lie. His identity was broken. His blood was a bridge between species older than empires, and now, the fate of the hive hinged on his next breath. The queen stepped closer, voice low. What is your decision? Rian clenched his fists, feeling power crackle beneath his skin like awakening fire. He lifted his head, and his anti-dangerous inevitable hung in the air like a spark over dry tinder. As the hive roared for its heir,